Smoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. How you doing? Starting a brand new week right here. Today is Monday, March 11th, 2024. Let's do this. Big show tonight. Caz Clarke is with us finally. So excited about tonight's show. We are going to be talking about the Pentyrch incident, the Pentyrch UFO incident, and that's kicking off this week. Tonight, Caz is with us. Tomorrow night, Laird Scranton is here. We're going to be talking about love it when Laird's on the show. He's the best. His new book, The Waters of Life. Wednesday night, survivalist Cody London, right here on Fade to Black, and his new TV show, The Survival Show. And then Thursday night is a special event. I will be going through page for page the Arrow UAP report. It will be a complete review. Not going to read every single word, but we're going to see every single page and my comments about the report that was just released. So we've got a lot of things that are going on right now in my world, all at the same moment. I've got a friend of mine down in Mexico. He just got back today, digging up artifacts. That's going on. We had the UFO UAP report released last week, and also tomorrow, right here in Los Angeles, is a press conference, and we are announcing that right now on the show. And I would like to bring on Michael Mazzola. Michael, how are you, brother? Big day tomorrow at the Mondrian Hotel here in Los Angeles. Tell us about it. What's going on?
Hey, Jimmy, great to be here. Thanks for having me. Well, I think we all saw the two little so-called alien mummies that Jaime Maussan brought in front of the Mexican Congress last September. We all had a good laugh, and people said it was paper mache or cake art or whatever. But, you know, I've known Jaime for a long time, and he was vouching for these things. I was very skeptical. So I went down to Mexico, and I wanted to see them with my own eyes. And I started talking to the scientists who were involved with this, and I realized this story was so much bigger than I ever imagined. And, you know, there's this total, you know, misperception out there that these are just dolls. If you Google this, there's 100 articles saying, oh no, Peruvian officials confiscated bodies. You know, you'll see pictures of them. You know, they're wearing dresses and sombreros, and it looks ridiculous. But it turns out those are not the same bodies that Jaime presented to the Mexican Congress. Somebody is lying about this. So then we got invited to go down to Peru and film the new bodies that were being delivered to this team of scientists. And so we filmed them, examining them for the first time and doing x-rays and CT scans. And we're going to be unveiling them at this press conference tomorrow.
Okay, so what time is the press conference? We just got the link up. It's in social media now. Tomorrow's press conference live at sparklivestream.com. What time does this kick off?
So 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have an English and a Spanish live stream. It's a bilingual press conference because most of the people involved speak Spanish. So we're going to have the whole thing dubbed in English for people who want English, and the whole thing dubbed in Spanish. And we're doing it live, and it's complicated as hell. I have found out to do that. But we figured it out. So it's going to go out on Jaime's YouTube channel and on his Twitter in Spanish, and it will go out on our YouTube channel in English. So if you go to sparklivestream.com, you can sign up, and we'll email you a free link.
Okay, so what is it that is going to be revealed? And the mainstream media, I'm assuming, your Michael Mazzola, has been invited. So do you expect the mainstream media to treat this as a breaking news story and a press conference?
Well, we hope so. We have some really good RSVPs from some major institutional media. We're very, very excited about that. We've had a few press agents, publicists working with us. And when we call and invite the press, they say, wait, you mean those dolls? So we have to say, no, that's part of what we're clearing up here. We're not just unveiling new bodies, but we're setting the record straight on the bodies that everyone has already seen. And we're not making any claims as to what they are, but they're certainly not dolls.
Okay. Now, Michael, you and I have known each other for a long time, lots of mutual respect, and we're friends. I need to stay somewhere in the middle on this because I am getting pulled in both directions. You're a voice that I trust, right? You're my friend, but there's everything else behind this. I've watched both of the Mexican press conferences and with extreme interest. And then I have been to Peru. I have been involved with this case since before it was a case. And I don't know which way so I'm going to be attending this press conference tomorrow. And I need to be convinced. Are you going to be able to do that?
Well, you'll have to let me know afterwards. We're not saying, hey, the science is settled, believe us. First of all, I'm not a scientist. And I had to use my intuition if the people who I'm speaking to, who are the absolute heads of their fields, in Mexico and Peru, if I would use my intuition as to, do I find these people credible? And I do. I've seen all the ways in which these things have been debunked. And these forensic experts, these people are forensic anthropologists. We've got the top expert in Peru in micro hand surgery. We've got the top expert in Peru in head and neck surgery. We've got DNA forensics experts. And they insist that these things could not be constructed. Which is what everyone thinks. They think the media thinks they're just dolls. Some people who've investigated this think, oh no, they're elaborate hoaxes. Now, if they are elaborate hoaxes, then, it's still a mystery because we have no idea how someone could have possibly constructed these things. I mean, they would need, just an absolute fortune worth of equipment, materials, technology that we don't even know exist, and medical education. But the people who've been finding these things and unfortunately selling them on the black market, these are not, these aren't surgeons. So for actual surgeons to be deceived by it is really, really interesting. So all we're doing is presenting all of the analysis that's been done so far and calling on the worldwide scientific community to step up and participate. Come to Peru, inspect the bodies, look at the CT scans, look at the x-rays, request samples. The University of Ica will send samples to any qualified laboratory that wants to do their own gene sequencing on it. This is what needs to happen. So we're trying to give these beings a sort of a fresh start and get some redemption for this story that's just been so trashed up to this point.
Well, it's a big day tomorrow, and I'm sure that you've got an awful lot going on right now. So get back to work. I will see you tomorrow at the press conference. And what a crazy couple of weeks it's been for the UFO community and the media and everything else that is going on. It seems like everything is dropping at the same time. So excited. Good luck tomorrow, and I'll see you at the press conference.
Thank you, brother.
Michael Mazzola. Okay, we've got the link up. It's at the Mondrian Hotel in Los Angeles tomorrow. If you would like to attend, you can do that. We've got the links up for you to go and get an RSVP, or you can also watch the live stream, and we've got the links up for that as well. And so there you go. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. This is one of the craziest cases out there, and it's not just. It all started, if you remember, back in 2017, 2018 with Maria and the reveal of that and the additional mummies that came along with that. And I was contacted about 2 years prior to that with all of the evidence in this case. And I've just held off. I decided then, and I'm still in the same position today. Let it all pan out. Let the science get involved. I'm not a paleontologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a chemist. I don't know anything about DNA. I don't know anything about this. All I know is that there is something going on, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And this is where universities and laboratories around the world need to step up and examine these independently on their own. Let's see what's going on. All right, Michael Mazzola. All right, I will see you in the morning. We've got the links up, and now it's time. We've got her here. Caz Clarke is live with us from the United Kingdom. She is the primary witness to the main event at Pentyrch, the Pentyrch UFO incident back in February of 2016. And I've said this enough. This is a modern case. This is 2016. This is new. The witnesses, the data, all of the data collection, all of that is new. This is fresh. This case needs to continue to be investigated, and there appears to be a very serious cover-up at the highest levels. We are going to go through everything tonight with Caz. I'm very excited to have her on the show with us. Been waiting for this for a long time, and I would like to welcome, live from the UK, there she is right there, Caz Clarke. Caz, good evening. How are you?
Oh, great. Fantastic to be here. I've been waiting a long time to speak with you.
Well, I've been waiting longer. Trust me. Caz, before we get started tonight, you get the first-time guest disclaimer. Can't forget that. Caz, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where that conversation starts, it starts. And where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. You have to accept.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, it made me nervous. That was a pause. You paused. Pause.
There's a delay.
Before we get into the events of the case, I know you've said this before, but this is my opportunity to ask you. Before 2016, did you know what a UFO was? Were you into this stuff?
No, I've been accused of being interested in it because I did share a Stephen Greer link. But, I've watched E.T. and Close Encounters too, but it didn't make me a ufologist I didn't have an avid interest in the case. But to be honest, you'd have to be stupid to think that we are alone, but it wasn't part of my life. I've got a family and it wasn't part of my everyday life. So when this happened to me, I was totally thrown.
And how does I remember talking to Gary about this. He goes, "You're going to have to ask Caz yourself." Well, now I can. Right? You go from one day, right, to having a family and a house, and the next day the whole world is shifted. Right. How did you deal with that? I mean, seriously, mentally. I mean, the first time that I had something like Crazy Town happen, and I was aware of what was going on, I didn't talk. I didn't talk for like 5-10 minutes. I just stared out the window. I couldn't believe it. It was just so. How did you start to deal with this yourself?
Not very well, to begin with. I actually had PTSD from this event. only because it was happening to me. I didn't realize I had PTSD. I was quite frantic. I needed to tell someone, anyone that would know what to do with this information, because I didn't know. I certainly didn't know anybody in a UFO group, you know. But my whole world turned upside down, because then I knew that we'd been lied to. So everything that we've been taught was the truth was a lie, and everything that was a lie is the truth. You know, it's just, you know, I feel like an 8-year-old in a new world, if you like, this alternative news and everything. I didn't have time for any of that. And now I'm a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, if that's what you want to call me now, you know, because I know the truth. I saw it. I was there. And
welcome to the family. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to the family. For me, I've always had a deep interest in this since I was a little kid, but that was for my own reasons. But I never really talked about it. You know, I grew up, I did my thing, I had my career. You know, I kept it to myself. And when I went to, all of my books, I kept that stuff hidden, Caz. My videos, I kept that stuff hidden. When people came over to my house, now you walk in, you're like, okay, dude's out of his mind. You can look around and see stuff, but you couldn't before. And when I went to my first MUFON meeting and was excited to be there, and I walked in and I'm hearing people talk, I went, oh, I can do this in public? Right? I can actually talk about this stuff. And it was a big release for me to be around people where we could share ideas and experiences. And did you find that too as well, that the community is open and very warm? I mean, for the most part.
For the most part, yes, but that wasn't my experience initially. You know, I needed to tell someone, so I went onto the internet and I looked around. You know, the Welsh UFO network came up, so I contacted them, and it turned out to be a one-man band who was dying of the flu, but he said if I was serious, I should speak to Richard Hall. I didn't know who he was, so I eventually found out who he was, and he was doing a conference in Merthyr, so I'd gone to Merthyr just to see him.
Caz,
Yeah.
you just turned your video off. Turn your video back on.
Oh, I didn't touch it. I don't know what happened then.
Wow, that was weird.
Wasn't it?
Oh, there you are. Yeah, see, that's the man. That's the man. That's the man.
I've been lent on by the mainstream media. I mean, I didn't go out for 18 months after that. I didn't speak to anybody. But after they threatened me and my family, that's when I decided, that's it. Now I'm going for gold, and we started the investigation.
Okay, so let's do just that. Let's walk through all of this. You've heard me cover this on other shows in the past, and I have a good idea of the events, but I've been waiting to talk to you personally about everything.
Good.
So let's start with the strangeness of that first day with what appeared to be, planes, and what made that day different to you than any other day as things started to kick off.
Well, it actually started on the 23rd, which was the Tuesday. And I noticed this small grey plane going over the village, but I didn't really pay it any mind because we got RAF St. Athan just down the road. So we have military aircraft pass through. They just don't tend to stick around. It was the 24th on the Wednesday that I really started to notice what was going on, because one of my neighbours, David, had come out of his house, and I won't say what he said, but he was cursing because this small plane had kept him awake all night. So it was then really that we started to notice the behaviour of this aircraft, which was circling. And I just remember thinking to myself, if it goes any slower, it's going to fall out of the sky. It was going that slow. And a bit later on, another plane, almost identical to the first, came to take its place, and the first plane would leave. And then all Wednesday night, I had a very restless night. You know, this aircraft was going over my house, roughly every 15 minutes. And I live in a very rural area, so it's very quiet here. And so that prop plane was very loud. And David had written to the Ministry of Defence, did not get an answer. He'd written to Wales Online, which is our mainstream media here. They too didn't answer. And into Thursday morning now, the plane was still there, and the first plane would come back and the second plane would leave. So there was only ever one aircraft here at a time. The Hawker Beechcraft Shadow R1 is an above top secret aircraft. And we can't find out very much about that aircraft other than that it was taken out of service in 2012 and brought back into service in 2014, having had some major top secret refit. And the other one is an Army Air Corps aircraft, but it was the Hawker Beechcraft that was here in the night. So we decided Thursday night that if the aircraft was still there, that we'd all go out and watch with them, because it was quite clear that they were watching for something. We checked the airspace. The whole of the Welsh airspace had been closed, not South Wales, the whole of Wales. We did check to see if there were any military exercises. Nothing was listed on the night. Nothing. There were no NOTAMs listed on the night. They were added the next day for the night before. And I can get into that a bit later. Well, David, because there was a few of us watching, was convinced that they were watching for Russian planes. And I know that sounds outrageous, but it was only the week before that our RAF, our Royal Air Force, had turned away 2 Russian Tu-160 bombers from our airspace. So he thought that's what it was going to be. You know, it was going to be some kind of escorting of foreign aircraft. Well, we certainly didn't expect to see what we saw.
So the Hawker was first, and you got the tail number ZZ418.
Yeah.
And then the Britain Norman, and you have that tail number ZG996.
Yeah.
Were the two of them ever up there at the same time, or were they trading off?
No, only when they came to change shifts, shall we say.
Right.
But they were never there both at the same time, no.
And so this was 2 nights. Now, I'm going to continue with this because this is the 24th and the 25th of February, and these are flight patterns. And so this is the Britain, right?
Yes.
This is the Britain flight path, ZG996, as everybody can see. And this is February 24th on the right and February 25th on the left. So let's go. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit here. This is February 24th. What are we looking at here?
This is the flight path of ZG996, the Britain Norman Army Air Corps reconnaissance plane. And that is flying continuously in a figure-8 formation over Pentyrch in South Wales. And that was repeated over and over and over for 8 hours before the other plane will come and take its place.
And the red dot here in the middle of this.
That's the plane.
That's the plane. And where's your property in this?
Well, you can't actually see it because Pentyrch is in the middle of that scrambled mess that you see there.
Right. But that's my question. You're underneath this scrambled mess.
Right.
Yes. It's absolutely incredible. Okay, so here is the next night. Same situation.
Same aircraft.
Same aircraft. Look at that.
And again, figure-8 formations. The other aircraft was flying in circles, and this aircraft would fly in figure-8 formations. So that was the nuisance that was coming over my house every 15 minutes.
And then let's go to ZZ418. This is the Hawker. This is the Beechcraft, I should say.
Yeah.
And again, February 25th and February 26th. Let's look at February 25th. Oh, man. Okay. That would get on my nerves right there.
Yeah. Well, it got on all of our nerves, to be honest with you. And as the time approached, so the circle got smaller. So they knew this thing was coming.
And then This is the night of, or the day,
The night of the 26th. Yeah.
the February 26th.
Yeah.
And again, there's the plane there like that. And I'm guessing again that Pentyrch is somewhere in the middle
Right in
of.
the center of that. Yes.
That is crazy.
And
That
that went
is
on for 3 days and 3 nights continuously. So, of course, by the third night, which was the Thursday night, we decided we'd go out and watch with them. So I'd lit the fire pit at the end of my garden. I wasn't camping, as some people have said. I was stood in my garden. David was with me. Donna, one of my other neighbors, was with me. And we were watching this ZZ-418 Beechcraft aircraft flying in circles. And Donna had gone into her house to make us all hot drinks. And I said to David, because it got to about 2 a.m. in the early hours of Friday, the 26th of February. And I said to him, look, you know, I'm tired. I'm freezing cold, because it was February. I said, I'm just a little bit bored. I'm going to go in. Look, you know, if something happens, call me. So I went to my house. I literally had my hand on the back door handle to go in. And I heard another aircraft coming. It sounded like a missile. It was so loud and so low. And that was the E-3 Sentry plane. It was the only plane that was recognizable on the night. That is the E-3 Sentry, a NATO plane. And David exclaimed that what that was as it banked around to the left-hand side, so you could see this mushroom-shaped object on its back. I had no idea what an E-3 Sentry was. I know now. So because this plane had turned up, I decided I'd stay a little longer. And Pentyrch, I have to explain, it's in an elevated position. So you can see in every direction but north, because that's where the actual mountain is. And this plane started to circle. Not small circles, but quite large. You know, it took, well, I estimated 5 minutes for it to go around once, but it could have been a little bit less than that. And 7 times that plane went around. David thought it might have been taxiing for the airport. The only airport large enough to accommodate a plane of that size is Cardiff International, where you wouldn't expect to see a NATO E-3 Sentry. But on the 7th time it went around, one red light became visible high above the trees behind my house. So I called for Donna, and I didn't get an answer. I called a second time. I still didn't get an answer. So I said to David, come on. And we jumped over the small wire fence and ran to the 5-bar gate that overlooks the farmland behind my house to get an unobstructed view as to what was going on. I don't know what had happened to that small reconnaissance plane at that point. My eyes were fixed on this red light, and one red light turned into 3 red lights. It didn't split. It was followed by 2 more. And it was the leading set of 6 bright red lights on its near side edge, because this thing didn't come down from outer space. This thing came through the space. And it was a 3-sided pyramid. That leading set of lights seemed to be the steering mechanism somehow for this craft. They were brighter than all the other lights. And there were red lights.
Okay, Caz, let's let me back up for a second.
Sure.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to relive this with you. Okay, so you said that your hand is on the door handle, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. At that point, as things started to unfold, did you look over your right shoulder or your left?
Neither. I had my hand on the back door handle. I heard the plane coming. So I've turned around to go back to the end of my garden to see this huge aircraft go over the top.
Right.
But as it banked around to the left-hand side, we had it just ebbed over the full moon. And David said, that's an E-3 Sentry plane, which meant absolutely nothing to me.
Now I got you. Now, see,
Yeah.
I need a clarification on this. Okay, so that's the moment, right? Okay,
Right.
so you let go of the door handle and you how many steps did you take?
My garden's fairly long. It's about 50 meters long.
50
I've gone
meters.
back
Okay.
to the end of my garden. And we stood back round the fire pit and started to count as this plane started to circle. But as I say, it took about, well, I estimated 5 minutes for it to go around once, but it could have been 4 minutes, or it could have been 3 minutes. I don't know, but it took a few minutes for it to go around once. And 7 times that plane circled. You know, so many times, you know, David even suggested that perhaps it was taxiing for the airport.
Okay, so we have, if we have 7, let's say 3 minutes, that's 20 minutes. So about 20, 25 minutes, you guys are standing out at your garden.
Right. Well,
right?
It'd have been longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well,
and
if it was 5 minutes each lap, that's 35 minutes.
It got to about 2:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And one red light was visible high above the fields behind my house. And so I'd called for Donna. She'd gone into her house to make us all hot chocolate, actually. She didn't answer. I called a second time, still no answer. So as I say, we jumped over the small wire fence and then we ran to the gate that overlooks the farmland. And I just stared at the one red light that was moving very slowly from my left to my right. And the leading had a leading string of lights facing me. And as it was turning very slowly anti-clockwise, and as it did so, came down in a pendulum motion, and jet as well. It shot this bright green object out of the top like it had been fired out of a cannon. I don't know what shape that was. It was too bright. It's moved across to my left-hand side and above the trees where it rocked. I described like a leaf falling on a still day, but it was just rocking backwards and forwards, not going anywhere. I stood on the 5-bar gate to get a better look through the bare trees and said to David, because the pyramid was landing, and I said to him, "It's landing. It's coming down." Only it wasn't coming down. The land there rises. It's the foot of the mountain, so the ground was coming up to meet it. And it ejected. I don't know why to this day, why I was fixated on it touching the ground. But I was, and it ejected, I described like a hand of lightning. It wasn't thin lightning. It was like a hand, thick, fire-coloured fingers came out of this thing. And the whole thing lit up. All the lights around its perimeter lit up. But the right-hand set of lights was still brighter than the rest. And around the lights that were closest to the ground, they've changed colour from this tail light red to this bright white orange, fire-coloured. And around those lights, you could see that this was a solid craft and not a string of lights, for example.
Now, how long, I'm going to pull up this image here in just a second. How long from when you saw the first string of lights, right, that moment of like, holy crap, to this revelation of the fingered lightning and this thing lighting up? How much time passed?
I don't know. It was moving all so slowly.
Right. So
I mean, very slowly anti-clockwise as it came. And I remember the lights going behind the trees like train garages as it tipped to the right-hand side. And whilst I was looking at the bottom, David was looking at the top. And he said he saw 15 or 20 objects come out of the top that just seemed to, I don't know, dance and mingle with each other around the top of this thing. And I didn't see any of those.
Well, let's come back. Let's come back to that. Okay. Sure. The reason why I'm asking you is you can see something like this and it lasts for 2 seconds. And you need to depend on, the 2 second. I've seen 2 second, UFOs.
No, this was minutes.
That's what I'm saying. Now, when you've got something else that you're dealing with, you can step back and like really check things out and observe. And that's what you were doing, except it was so big. And I want to understand this. You're absorbing the lightning hand. I hope I'm describing that correctly, by the way. You're looking at that. You're not looking at the top. It's that big, right? Yes. David's doing the manly thing, right? He's looking at the top of the craft. That's probably what I would have done. But you're looking at something what I think is much more interesting. you're looking at this thing tilt, and you're looking at the lightning hand come out of the bottom,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And you're just taking it all in.
I was in awe of what I was seeing. A million questions going through my head. Were these the gods of old? I never expected anything like that, let alone something that size. It was, that's just an artistic impression, but, from the EMF trail that it left behind and the angle from which I saw it is estimated to be 1,000 foot per side. It was huge. And it was turning. It came in and tipped to the right and was turning. So that right-hand corner was always lower than the left, if you like, but moving away from us. And I heard the military planes coming. I now know to be two C-17s. I didn't know what they were at the time. I just knew they were big military aircraft with 2 engines on each wing. And they were flying wingtip to wingtip. And I was still stood on the gate, and I looked up just to see them go over the top of me. And when I looked back, I couldn't see the pyramid anymore. And that's not to say it wasn't there, but it did fade to black. It was gone, and there are...
Well done.
And literally, it came in and it went back into this fabric around us. There's no street lighting there. There's no light pollution at all. And even with the full moon, I couldn't see it. So that's not to say it wasn't there. 2 further aircraft came from my left-hand side. I now know to be 2 C-130s Hercules aircraft. I didn't know what they were on the night. I just knew they were military aircraft. And I only know what they are now because of the absolutely brilliant investigation that Gary Jones has done into the military timeline and tracing these aircraft, because all of their transponders were off. Every single aircraft that was up, except for the reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft. Anyway.
Yes, I know that you heard my show with Gary, which was excellent. One of the things that I asked Gary that night, well, many times when he said, "Oh, you got to ask Caz," I can't answer that, was the texture of the pyramid.
Right.
And now we're looking at an artist rendition here. But take me through that. When this thing lit up, what did the surface of the craft look like to you?
Okay, well, it wasn't quite as clear as that in the triangles, if you like, on the pyramid. It was black, completely black. But around the brightest lights, when the whole thing lit up, you could see that it was textured like a rock face, like it was made of stone. But I don't know, because that's the only way I can describe it. It wasn't as clear as that. It was only around the brightest lights that you could, where that bright light was shining on the side of it, that you could see that it was a solid craft. Yeah.
Now, what do you think? Did it appear? I'm going to ask. Look, I just want your emotions. I want you to, reach down inside of you for a second. Did it appear to be old? And what I mean by that, so I just want you to picture this. You see a brand new ship on the ocean, right? Big freighter. Then you see another big freighter, same size, but it's like 20 years old. And you can tell that it's been out on the water, right? It's been working. Is that what you think you might be seeing here? That you're looking at a craft that has been out there doing stuff for a long time. It wasn't brand new.
For a very long time.
Yeah.
And, people said, well, weren't you afraid? I wasn't afraid. I felt a connection with them.
How so? How so?
Like they're part of us somehow.
Yeah.
And we're part of them. But I'll get into that when...
Yeah, let's do. Okay. So I remember seeing a picture of you at your gates, right? You're like, and you, yeah, and uh, when how far away from your garden and those pictures of you standing at your gates, how far away would you guesstimate that the pyramid and this action was from you?
From the gate or from my house?
Well, your house is behind the gate.
Yeah, it is. From the gate, it's about 200, 230 meters away from me.
600 feet.
Yeah.
That's close.
Oh, yeah, but not as close as the barrels.
And we'll get to that in a second. And let's not get ahead of our skis, Caz. The barrels are the most. Now, okay, so what did you? You've been asked this many times, but what did you hear?
Here, only the military aircraft.
That's it, right? The pyramid itself wasn't making any noise.
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing at all.
And the lightning. I want to bring this up. This is what Caz. I'm going to see if I can enlarge this. This is what Caz has described as. Now, this is an artist rendition, but she's described it as a lightning hand coming out of the. It was tilting. The pyramid itself was tilting.
Yeah.
Was that making any noise?
Nothing. Not from the distance. Not from where I was. I couldn't hear anything at all.
And what do you think it was doing?
Stopping itself from touching the ground, I think.
Yeah, and spinning. And so I might have, man, I didn't bring, hold on for a second. I thought I had a pyramid in here. I don't. Caz, I don't have a pyramid. What am I going to do?
I was coming.
Yeah. Do you know how many pyramids I have in this house? I thought I had one right here. Hold on. Let me take one quick look. Okay. Well, anyway, so it is, this is a remote control, but it's pivoting on its corner with the electricity coming out of the lightning, and it's pivoting, right, and turning at the same time.
Very, very slowly anti-clockwise, as it was moving away from me.
On that point on the ground that it's grabbing is where I'm going with this, right? Like a hand grabbing the ground and it's turning. Is that accurate? That's how I've always pictured it.
Yeah, like it was trying to stop itself from touching the ground, almost reaching out to stop itself from touching the ground. So I can describe it. That's how it went, like a hand.
Yes, exactly.
Like a hand. It was like a hand, like it reached out to stop itself because the ground there was rising,
Incredible. And at this point, the dumbest question in the world, right? Did you think you were looking at something not of this world?
Oh yeah.
Was that what was going through your mind?
The question that went through my head was, were these the gods of old?
Right.
Is that where the pyramid idea came from, even though this was a tetrahedron, not a four-sided pyramid, a three-sided pyramid. But I stood in complete shock and awe of what I was seeing, trying to make sense of it, really.
What happened next?
Excuse me. Sorry, guys, I've got my kid's cold. The two C-130 aircraft came from my left, and they've come back in behind the two C-17s that have gone in before. And the green object, the first object that came out, has moved across in front of these aircraft, and has fired 3 really bright strobes at them, and seemed to get excited, like it was skipping and bobbing in front of him, to draw those aircraft away from where that pyramid was last seen. I did apologize in the chat before this started. I've got this. Anyway. And the 4 aircraft I watched it. It was so surreal. This green object bathed the aircraft in this green light. You could see all the outline of the engines and their fuselages as they went off into the distance with this thing skipping and bobbing in front. And I watched it until I couldn't see it anymore. And when it was out of sight, the E3 Sentry was still above us. We were approached by these two barrel-shaped objects. They were both red in colour. And one stopped above the hedge about 20, 30 feet away from me, maybe 20 feet up. And I stared at it just for a few seconds because I wanted to see. I wanted the details.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the insides were moving like white noise. But it was more 3D than that. It was mixing in on itself. And then I looked to see where the other one was, and that hadn't stopped. And by that time, it was practically above me. And the only thing I could think to do was to wave. With all the military activity that was going on that night, I didn't want us to appear to be hostile. And for me, that had to be the universal signal for hello, and I don't mean you any harm. David had backed off by this point. He'd seen it coming, and I was so fixated on the one on the hedge that I didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the one above me changed colour from red to green. And it was the only thing I couldn't be tested for when I took my polygraph examinations with the leading forensic polygraph examiner in this country. When it scanned me, I felt it scan me. And because it was a feeling, I couldn't be tested for it. But I did hear a man's voice, not my voice. Tell the world what you witnessed here. I don't know if that was audible in that David heard it, or if that was just in my head. But it was not my voice. But I did say I will, out loud. And that green barrel, the now green barrel, has moved away to my right-hand side above the rooftops of the houses. And the red barrel that had remained sentry the whole time started to move across to my left-hand side and low across the fields. And I watched that until I couldn't see that anymore. We walked down to what we called the second field because David said he saw 15 or 20 of these things to see if there were any more. But even with a full moon in the shadow of the hedgerows, the ground was slippery and even underfoot and dangerous. My phone didn't work. David's phone was fried completely. Mine wouldn't even switch on. Not that I actually thought to film it whilst I was looking at the pyramid. The only time it occurred to me to actually get my phone out and start filming was when that barrel was above me.
Mm.
Before that point, I was just, your cognitive function just ceases. You're not believing, you're trying to make sense of what it is that you're seeing, and I'm not believing what I'm seeing. But I wanted to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the very, very exact same thing. I've gone through a couple of times, and I stood there. My phone in my hand. Caz, as I live and breathe, my phone is in my hand on my side. And I'm just standing there with my jaw on the ground watching. I didn't even, and then when it came finally, after it happened twice, I get my phone out, I turn on the video, and I'm ready. It's gone. So I know, I understand that experience. And
I didn't want to take my eyes away from it. Not for a second.
You don't want to. You don't. No. You get a pass card, young lady. You get a pass card here. Can I back up for a second?
Sure.
You mentioned the first green light that took off.
Yeah.
Was it like the first one?
Yeah.
Was it like, and I don't want to, I'm imagining this, I'm painting it in my mind. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like, if you have a guy in the front of a line with a lantern or a flashlight, and he's guiding everybody behind him in line, right? But he's got the light in front, and he wants everybody to follow him. Is that what was going on? Or am I understanding this wrong?
The way that it behaved was like it was some kind of scout ship, like a deliberate decoy to draw the aircraft away from where that pyramid was last seen and the load that it had jettisoned.
Right.
A sacrifice, if you like.
A distraction. Right.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. The 4 aircraft went after the green object, which was the one that they shot down over Llantrisant Common, the one that we concentrated on that had crashed into Smilog Woods, and we have witnesses now that were in Smilog Woods that night. So I never knew the shape of that green object, but it was different to all the rest. It was brighter and larger than the barrels. The barrels much, even though they were illuminated, they were much dimmer than this in comparison to that bright green object. But now we know that there were multiple shoot downs that night, not just the green object.
Here's the artist's interpretation of this. And who is this standing on the gate?
Oh, that would be me.
That's you.
Yeah.
And then the picture on the right, you can see my mouse. That's you and David at the gate here.
Well, it's an artist. It's a graphic design, yes.
I know that, but
Yes,
people are looking at their past. Okay, so that's you and David there.
Yes.
That's the green barrel. Here's the red barrel here. So let's take a look at you for a second. Is this pretty close to what the barrel looked like to you?
Yeah, it was slightly larger than that. It was about the size of a smart car.
It looks pretty big here.
Oh, yeah. They were quite big, but they're...
Okay. Describe the texture. It looks like, from what I'm seeing here, now I want to know what you saw, your memory, but it looks like there's a top and bottom.
Yes.
And then it's slightly bulging in the middle with the texture to it. Describe what you...
They were completely smooth, almost like they were made of glass. But they were capped on the top with these just black caps. I mean, I didn't touch them, so I don't know, but there was no texture to them. They were completely smooth, or as smooth as glass. And all the insides were moving. Not like that, but like white noise, but mixed white noise, if you like, not as flat as white noise. So it was like electricity, like the essence of life encapsulated in these things. Like
was it swirling?
No, it was dancing.
Dancing.
Does that make sense? Like it was.
It does. It does. That's a perfect word.
That's what it was like. That's what it was like. And when it turned green, you could see even clearer the insides moving.
The red ones were the same as the green. The color was just changing.
Right. They were both red initially, but when the one came over the top of me, it changed color. Yeah, to green.
And is that when you got the scan?
Yes.
When it turned green.
It turned green, and then I felt it. You know, like I felt lifted, almost like this euphoric feeling. It was bizarre. Like there was a connection.
Yeah, right. Now, most people would lose their minds, like me. I would have lost my mind. But you didn't. You've always described this calm. You were cool with it. Why do you think
someone reached in and took the fear away?
Right.
Because they weren't hostile at all. I mean, I am a Christian. I'm proud to be a Christian. And I question whether or not these things were the angels of light.
Right.
Because there are no descriptions of them. They're just lights. You know?
There is a point where I need to ask, when we look at the historical descriptions of events in the past, they are very similar to yours, except they don't have an ET component to it. It's spiritual, right? Or it's gods, it's angels. But do
That's what
you
they call it.
feel that your experience is what has been described in the past historically, going back thousands of years?
I don't know. I know how it made me feel. And it was biblical. That's the only way to describe it. It was
Right.
the most euphoric, lifting feeling I've ever had in my life.
Was it the same for Dave?
No.
What happened with him?
David had backed off because there were a row of garages behind us. And I was still stood on the gate, so I had nowhere to go. I couldn't run or move backwards because I had my leg wrapped over the top of this 5-bar gate. But David had seen the second one coming whilst I was still staring at the one over the hedge. And then he'd moved backwards away from it. But he was the complete opposite to me. Like he was almost catatonic, talking through gritted teeth, terrified. Terrified.
Did he get scanned too?
I don't think so.
Did he hear a voice like you did?
No, but he's had some very strange visions since.
Like what?
Oh, you'd have to ask him. I can't discuss that. But I've had some. If you have a dream and you remember it in detail, it's not a dream. And the answer is sound. Whatever it means, the answer is sound. It's a frequency that opens the door. That's the answer to the riddle, if you like. Or the answer to the vision is sound. Anyway, going back to the night, when the two barrels had moved off in different directions, we heard the Apache helicopters coming. There were 3 of them, one above 2, and you could see their red pulsing lights moving out in front of them slowly as they flew across the fields from my left to my right on an interception course with that first bright green object. You could see the grass being pushed flat by the force of their rotors. I mean, they broke every aviation rule in the book that night. We ran around the front of the houses to see if we could get a better view up the valley. But by the time we got there, they were already out of sight. So we went back to my house. The E3 Sentry followed us. And what I mean by that is that E3 Sentry was maintaining this oval flight pattern the whole time. So it filmed the whole event. And when we walked down to the second gate, to the second field to see if there were any more, that E3 Sentry came with us. And when we came back, that oval flight pattern came back with us and eventually followed me all the way home. We were sitting in my house. David was just staring into the abyss, or almost like trying to make sense of what had just happened. And I was the opposite. I was energized. I was frantic. I needed to tell someone. We were complete opposites. And David went home. I went to bed, not that I could sleep. And I heard the enormous explosion come from the direction of Llantrisant, which is 5 miles away. And I knew then they'd shot that green object down. But I needed to prove it. And I wanted to see it myself.
Now, I'm going to pop this up, but we're going to take a break here in a second. But I want to bring this up here. This is February 26th. This is in the Mirror.
Right.
And it says, terrified neighbors in Country Village wake during the night to sounds of explosions and fighter jets. Villagers in the Welsh valleys were woken up by the Army and RAF exercise in the middle of the night. This is obviously February 26th. And when you say they shot it down, and news reports come out about explosions. Is this what you're referring to?
Absolutely. And if you read the next line, you would say that villagers were awoken to sounds of explosions in the sky, not on the ground.
Yeah, let's pull this up. That's right here. Villagers were terrified when they awoke to sounds of explosions in the sky. Military aircraft were spotted above the skies last night as planes and helicopters in a major training drill.
Right.
Now, that training drill, we're going to take a break right here, Caz, but that training drill has been flip-flopped on a few times now, hasn't it? I mean, did it happen or not? Right?
No, it didn't happen. It never happened. Right. We've had that from the Secretariat. I've sent that to you for you to show everybody. They tried to cover the cover story with another cover story to say it was a police counter-terrorism drill. But there was one of those either we had the police facing criminal charges for contempt. And that was 2 years in prison or £5,000 fine or both for every single one of those officers that refused to answer me.
Our guest tonight, Caz Clarke, live from the UK. We're talking about the Pentyrch UFO incident. Caz, you stay right there. We're going to take a quick break. This is Fade to Black. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now.
My job is not to preach. My job is to take you on this journey.
In a state of passion, nothing negative can happen.
That it's the moons of those planets that would have life.
Sometimes I see, these energies also in your field.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. And right now, if you get a Game Changer membership for a limited time, you will get Fade to Black blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. That's right. We have 2 t-shirts. We have the original, the classic Fade to Black t-shirt. You know you want one. Post a picture. Send it to us. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery. And we've got the new official Fade to Black t-shirt drawn by Michael Oming. 2 t-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yours today. Everything is in stock. Everything gets autographed. Everything includes shipping. And you're going to get a tracking number. And with the Game Changer membership, you get an email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads of the show. Those are uploaded every single night after the show to the website. So don't delay. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, tonight, live from the UK. Caz Clarke is with us. I've been waiting for this show for a very long time, and I got good news. So I got up during the break, and I found, it was sitting right there underneath the piece of paper, my black pyramid. I got my black pyramid. So, Caz, I've got my black pyramid. Just a quick recap. And again, everybody, this is just, I'm not a pyramid pilot. I just play one on TV. So Caz and her neighbor, Dave, they've had a few days of planes flying over their property in South Wales. And on the third night, as Caz, an E3 Sentry, large, and those are the big jets with the radar on the top, circles the house 7 times. Caz walks out while this is going on, almost bailed. Caz almost bailed, almost went into the house. She stops. She goes back out to the garden with Dave. 7 laps happen, and then this craft, I'm going to call it a craft, shaped like a pyramid, comes in, and while this is coming, the craft lights up, lightning hand shape. Anyway, it pivots. It's moving slowly, but it grabs the ground and then takes off and goes black. Right. So while all of that is going on, we have objects that shoot out of the top. Caz has described them as barrels out of the top. Another bright green one seems to run a distraction mode, trying to pull the aircraft. Apparently, this is Caz observing this. To pull the military away from what is actually going on. They disappear. Caz is following. They disappear over the hill. Meanwhile, these barrel-shaped craft show up, and they are illuminated red. They have a cap on the bottom and the top, but like a clear side to them, and they are red. Caz is at the back gate, or at her gate, when one of the barrels comes down right above her, and it changes from red to green. And Caz has described at that moment like she got scanned, and she waved, which, you know what, that was a good move, by the way. I like the wave move. I don't know if I would had my wits about me, Caz, but you wave, and then you hear a voice say,
Yeah.
Tell the world what you saw. Am I phrasing that?
Witnessed here.
Yeah. And that's where we are at this moment. The next day, and I showed one headline. The next day, these headlines start to show up. This is Wales on. Yeah, the same day. This is Wales Online. How military training planes and helicopters kept parts of South Wales awake. The training exercise went on for hours through the night. Military aircraft were spotted above the sky with South Wales last night as planes and helicopters took part in a major training drill. Now, was this as you're seeing this, you know what you were seeing over your house, you know what you went through. What happens next? Do you guys reach out to the government? Do you contact the police?
I didn't know you weren't supposed to talk about UFOs, so I immediately launched into a comment, that I can categorically state that was no exercise. Last night I saw absolutely everything, and what they were chasing were not planes. And I will take a lie detector anywhere for anyone. But what I witnessed last night will stay with me for the rest of my life. What is more, they had to spot a plane in the air for 2 days, waiting for the event. And when it happened, 4 planes chased the green object, whilst the E3s circled approximately 6 red oval objects that formed a pyramid shape. I think that's verbatim what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 2 debunkers. One called himself the Smoking Man, using a fake Facebook profile. I believe he was military, along with his friend who called himself Agent Fox Mulder, also using a fake Facebook profile, because the military were in at community level from the off.
I have one of those posts. Can I pop the post up?
Sure.
Okay. This is Caz. Caz says, this is the second one. Okay, hold on. Let me pull this down. I apologize for that. I have it. Oh, Caz, wait a minute. I only have the one.
Okay. Well, the first one was what I just said, and then the second one was his buddy, Agent Fox Mulder, after the Smoking Man said, LOL, good one. And I said, well, yeah, it was good, actually. It's apt you should use the name the Smoking Man. After all, isn't it your job to debunk real events? Answer this. When did they use live ammunition in an exercise in a residential area? Answer, never. And one more thing, they may have chased and shot down the green object, but they didn't get the red ones, did they? Because they were all still here. And then Agent Fox Mulder got involved, and he said, no, actually, it's my job, with a smiley,
Yeah, he's right.
Like to take the mick, And if it wasn't UFO related, why are they using those names? I think try and belittle the case, to ridicule it, but those Facebook profiles don't exist. I looked. So, how did I know on the morning of the 26th of February it was not an exercise, when you got the mainstream media telling you that it was? There's been an 8-year investigation into this case. Gary Jones has been absolutely fantastic, and together as a team, we've taken it to the authorities. The Ministry of Defence cannot supply a single piece of paperwork for a £3.8 billion operation. They had 20 military helicopter gunships, C-17s, C-130s, 2 E-3 Sentry planes, reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft. In fact, the small plane that was here for 3 days and 3 nights with its partner plane prior to the event went to Smilog Woods and circled the exact crash site after the explosion. The Apache helicopter had to do an emergency landing at Cardiff International Airport just minutes after the huge explosion that was so big that it registered on the Richter scale 40 miles away in Monmouthshire, that it shook patients awake in the hospital, shook people's homes, and set car alarms off in the neighbouring villages. The Ministry of Defence's explanation for the explosion that night was that it was a simulated munition. Simulated munitions do not have any kinetic energy and hardly any sound and very little smoke. Witnesses have told us, members of staff at the hospital, there was so much smoke, it resembled a very foggy night. The only thing that could create that much smoke was a missile, and the smell of cordite or sulfur was in the air that came through the vents and through the windows and filled the corridors of the hospital with smoke. The military conducted a meticulous metal search on Llantrisant Common in the very early hours, in fact, what they call silent hours, using helicopters and troops on the ground at 4:30 in the morning. When we asked them why they conducted that metal search, they told us Section 26, not in the public interest, defence. So now your bloody washing machine is national security. Bits of old bike are national security, you know, it's ridiculous.
That had been sitting out there for years before nobody paid attention to, right?
Yeah, right. You know, the military closed off Smilog Woods. They closed the roads. We have witnesses to that. We have witnesses to several other debris fields where they brought the barrels down. We know now that they brought down several craft and not just the green object, although the green object was different. Jacob Coleman is also a primary witness that's come forward, who saw that green object in a standoff with the Apache helicopters and goes into some detail about what it looks like. But we have witnesses that were in Smilog Woods that night who were assaulted, arrested, illegally searched, and illegally and forcibly removed from that area, which is a breach of international humanitarian law because there is no legal mechanism to close a public right of way. And they saw that object on the ground and described it as an old glass Coke bottle with the top cut off, with that undulation in the center. And I never knew what shape that green object was until now. And it explains how it moved, if you like. And it was very different to the barrels and to everything else that night.
The shape. Let's stay on that for a second. Okay, so we have this. We understand. Well, this is 4-sided. You saw a 3-sided pyramid. This is 4. Right. So we have that. The barrels are shaped like this and are flying like this.
The barrels, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so right. You know, so that, but the shape of the bright green craft.
Yeah.
Was that vertical or was it horizontal?
No, I would suggest it was horizontal, the way that it skipped and moved. It seemed to get excited once it had flashed the 3 really bright strobes at the aircraft. And I described like Tigger off Winnie the Pooh, how it skipped and bobbed, as opposed to flying in a straight line. But very, very different. The way that Jacob described it at the Llantrisant end was that it was shimmering, almost shaking, moving backwards and forwards across, you know, and the back of it was like sheets in the wind, you know, like the back of it was moving.
It was trying to draw attention to itself. It sounds like it wasn't trying to. It wasn't trying to hide.
No, it was definitely trying to draw those aircraft away from where the pyramid was last seen, and the barrel objects it had jettisoned. Yeah. And those barrels, they didn't move very quickly. They moved quite gracefully and slowly, but they also, it's like they had emotion. You know, they tried to run and they tried to hide from the military. But we hunted them down anyway. And I know of at least 3 of them that were shot down, not including the green object.
I'm going to go to this. This is some social media with the Welsh Online here.
Right.
And now, or Wales, I said Welsh Online. Wales Online.
It was close.
Yeah, it's close. It counts. So the first comment here from Dens, what went off on, how do you say that?
Lantricent. Yes,
Comment at 4 a.m. Helicopters landed for ages and then took off again, then circled around for ages. The next comment, I heard them too. It was 2 explosions, some sort of military exercise as they were Chinook, Pumas, Apaches flying. And then Wales Online chimes in with, we are currently working on a story about this. We will post the link as soon as we have it. So it's not like the public outside of you and Dave were talking about this. I mean,
nobody knew. To do a military exercise of this size, there must be a ministerial briefing and there must be a press briefing. And clearly there wasn't either, because the press was still working on a story at 3:39 in the morning. So they didn't know. In fact, nobody knew. No one.
Yeah. And but what I'm referring to is the locals, the residents.
No one.
Right.
No,
but they heard it.
To Twitter and, to social media and to phone the police that night, including the ambulance service and the staff at the Royal Glamorgan Hospital, also phoned South Wales Police, who were advising people on the night that it was a military exercise. So not even the police knew that they were supposed to say it's a police counter-terrorism exercise, because that was the cover story to cover the cover story, and that didn't exist either.
Yeah, and does that make any sense to you or to anybody else? The first phone call from the military is to the local police to tell them, don't freak out, but we're going to be doing military exercises. We need to coordinate with you guys. It's going to be anti-terrorism. And if it's on the level, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to not tell the local police. Why? Because the people are going to hear what's going on and they're going to freak out. You need to know what is going on and you need to answer those phone calls when they start rolling in, right? So that is a cover story for the cover story.
Well, yeah. Plus, they did all of this over private land. They didn't do this over Ministry of Defence land. And as the crow flies, Sennybridge, which is MOD land, where they have 240,000 hectares of land, if they want to go and blow themselves up in silent hours, they're more than, welcome to do so. But to do this over private land, over a residential area, next to the Royal Mint, which is actually part of the MOD zone avoidance policy, on an industrial estate and next to a medical facility, is totally illegal without the owner's written permission. And the
does this? Let me. I knew we'd run out of time, Caz. We've in the time that we have left. Let me ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
It appears to me, and I've thought about this a lot, that they knew, and I'm talking about the Ministry of Defense of the United States Air Force. They knew. We know about Rendlesham Force and the joint locations that operate there with the United States and Great Britain. We have cooperation between our two countries. That's great. But they knew in advance that they were coming. There isn't another way to look at this. Either they saw the ships entering our star system, they were tracking them, there was communication going on. Whatever the situation is and was, they knew in advance of the event. Is there another way to look at this?
No. They absolutely knew they were coming. They watched for them continuously for 3 days and 3 nights. And then they set an ambush for them with £3.8 billion worth of equipment. over a residential area next to a hospital. There were no military exercises listed. There was one added to say it was an air defense exercise. 8 years later, we get a response, actually it was 7 years later, from the Secretariat of the Ministry of Defence themselves. The only higher authority is the King. There were no air defence exercises in South Wales of February of 2016. So what were they doing here? And how did I know on the morning of the 26th it was not an exercise?
How did you know?
I saw it.
Yeah, right, exactly. I am going to pull up this next image. Pentyrch Fields. Pentyrch. I keep saying Pentyrch. Pentyrch Fields, covert military. This is 2016. What are we looking at? It's multiple images. Walk us through this. What are we looking at here?
Right. These were the military that pretended to be civilians. They'd given different stories as to who they were. Firstly, they said they were a fracking survey team, which did not go down well in the village. And then they said they were Vodafone, which is a mobile phone network, doing field research. Well, I knew the truth. I knew why they were there, because they were examining the field where this pyramid emerged, using several. That's what they're doing in the bottom right picture. That's where they are, in that field where the pyramid emerged. And they had satellite arrays, 3 of them, small satellite dish on that Jeep at the bottom there. But they were military. And we actually got them to admit they were military, and they were armed. They didn't have yellow caps in the end of their guns, and the magazines weren't coloured in any way, which certainly implied that they were carrying live rounds. And they lied about their identity. And it is their duty under the Training Over Private Land Act, written by the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, the people in charge of the Ministry of Defence, Section 26B. It is their duty to tell people who they are and what they're doing there, because they're on private land, not on Ministry of Defence land. No planning permission was ever granted for these people to be there for the change of use of that land, and there was no planning permission for any surveys on that land either. It was a covert military cleanup crew, and we've got a Section 26, not in the public interest defence, eventually, and only the military can hide behind Section 26. But I needed them to say it. So we asked them, why were the military in the fields of Pentyrch? And we got a Section 26 on that too. Not Vodafone, not a fracking survey team, and they lied about their identity. This was a covert military operation to deal with whatever that pyramid may have left behind.
You can clearly see on the top of this Land Rover, that's a satellite dish. It's flat, it's circular. You're looking at it from the front, but that is the mount of a satellite dish, 100%. There's no question about that. That is a military guy standing right there. He's in uniform with a patch on his shoulder. And you can see a long string of vehicles behind this Range Rover Defender, which is out front, which does have a satellite dish on its roof on private land. And here, that's a generator. I don't know what these cases of equipment are. Those look like military tents to me. Very, very, very strange. Now, Caz, I'm going to pull this image down for a second. To have the Wales Online, is it Wales or Welsh? Yeah. It's Wales Online. Write their articles. The Mirror wrote theirs that there were military exercises going on, and then no record of the military exercises. How does the MOD respond to that to you, and as you're trying to unfold this? When you ask them, did they happen or not? Right? What was their response to that?
When we asked them about military exercises in South Wales in February of 2016, the Secretariat eventually admitted that there were no air defence exercises or low-flying exercises in South Wales in February of 2016. So why were they here? They broke every aviation rule, including minimum heights and minimum safe separation distances. And the only time that they can do that is in a real situation, in a real combat situation. I mean, the pilots of the helicopters were so low over people's homes in what the military calls silent hours that members of the public were able to view the pilot or eyeball the pilot looking out of their bedroom windows. That's how low. The Ministry of Defence have lied on multiple occasions. They denied any knowledge of those people in those fields twice, and they double-checked the second time and confirmed they held no information, but that was a lie too. And then eventually, because we are persistent, because they may have woven a tangled web, but I am the spider. I know the truth, and no lie or fake cover story or non-applicable exemptions that the police tried to use will ever stand against the truth.
This image, I'm going to pull this up again. This image of ZZ418 doing what appears to be hundreds of laps, circular, 2 days in a row, February 25th and February 26th of 2016. What does the Ministry of Defense say this plane was doing over Pentyrch on those 2 days?
We asked them about this aircraft, and it took them nearly 3 years to answer us. No NOTAM was ever listed, that's Notice to Airmen, was ever listed for these aircraft. No exercise has ever been listed for these aircraft. And when they eventually answered us, it was a Section 26, not in the public interest.
Isn't there now? I don't understand the politics of Great Britain as well as I should, but you have the same sort of structure that we do here in the United States. You have the local level, right? The city and municipal level. You have a state level, and then you have the federal, the big government level, right? Okay, so it's multiple. Is there a local, for us, it would be like a Congress, a representative. You have the state level and the national level. Do you have somebody that, I'm sure that you've tried, but do you have somebody that can stir, poke the stick in the eye of the bear to stir this up, to get answers that go beyond a section that says this is in the national interest?
Well, Section 26 is a valid exemption at the moment. And I say at the moment, because I do have a cunning plan, which I can't tell you about on air, I'm afraid, because I don't want them to know exactly where I'm coming from. They won't be able to hide behind Section 26 for very much longer. It's not a valid exemption in this case, and I will show them why. So we know what they were doing here. I know because I saw it. And they tried to deny on multiple occasions that they knew anything about these aircraft. And then when you persist, as we did, we eventually get a Section 26 defense. As I say, no exercises have ever been listed. The big military exercise that it was supposed to have been that night was added the next day for the night before on the MOD website as an air defense exercise. But it wasn't there on the night. But there's no commencement date, and all training is planned. So you have the day that it was planned and the day that it will commence. The same with NOTAMs. NOTAMs have to be planned and submitted a minimum of 5 days before they go live to the Civil Aviation Authority. But the Civil Aviation Authority don't know anything about the NOTAM that was posted. But more importantly, neither does the Ministry of Defence, and they were the people that allegedly posted that NOTAM, because it was never planned. The whole thing went down as a real event. We have the paperwork and the documents to prove it. I can only send you a fraction and a very small amount of the information that we have. But the fact that they flew with no lights and no transponders that night, they would only do that in a real combat situation. The avoidance policy through the MOD is so serious that it involves royal households. They cannot fly near medical facilities, but they shook patients awake in their beds with the explosion that went off. The members of staff that are given us statements said that the explosion was so loud they thought something had crashed into the side of the ward they were in. That's how loud. You know, this is no small explosion. The military had no permission to be in Smilog Woods. We've had that from National Resources for Wales that own the land, and they've told us categorically this type of activity would have required permission. The Ministry of Defence do not have carte blanche to do what they like on private land. They must get permission from the landowner. There must be a ministerial briefing. We've spoken to the Welsh government. They didn't know anything. We've spoken to local government. They didn't know anything. The fire service didn't know anything, bearing in mind there's huge explosions going off next to the Royal Mint, on an industrial estate and next to a hospital in a residential area. The fire service weren't told. South Wales Police were the instigators of a secondary cover story, and I've untangled that too, because I know the truth. And Gary and I took them to the Information Commissioner's office and had them facing charges of contempt. And that's contempt of court for refusing to answer us and trying to hide behind two exemptions that do not exist. Well, they exist, but they don't apply. And I hauled them over the coals for it. So they had a choice: lose their job and go to prison for 2 years, or tell us the truth. And eventually they had to answer us. There were no counter-terrorism exercises. So why did they try and change their story? And why was it the South Wales Police didn't know that it was supposed to be a counter-terrorism exercise on the night, and were telling people it was a military exercise, and that didn't exist either? This is the biggest cover-up in the history of this subject. Straight up. And we've got the documents and the witnesses to prove it.
Let me tell you something, Caz. I never want you on my tail. Do not. Being very serious, a serious face back on. What about video and images of that night? Surely it must be out there.
Well, we do have some photographs, but we don't have the originals. We've been trying to work for 2 years now to get the video, because they took data blocks off people. So they were so sure that there was no video or photographs. So anybody that asked me about that, I'm like, well, who are you? Because they took data blocks of information off people. Not the date, the whole block. From the 1st of December 2015 to the 1st of March 2016, the whole lot is gone. Everybody's Christmas of 2015, it was in that area that night, their data is missing. And I know this from at least 2 other witnesses besides myself. One of the witnesses hasn't come forward yet. She has spoken with me. She was driving through the debris of one of those barrels that they brought down. She said it was like crystal, like white crystal and red crystal, not mixed, red and white crystal, big chunks of it. The military is scrambling around in at least 3 different areas, picking that stuff up. So they were quite confident that they got everything, but not quite everything.
No, you can't do that. No matter how good you are, you're not going to get it all. And if you know what it was like when you were a kid, and you dipped into the cookie jar and you thought you got away with it. You didn't. You get caught. You can never outlive the lie. You can't do no matter what. And that's the situation that the United Kingdom is right now with this case. Right. And now I was just over in London, and I was in Manchester. Great. By the way, best trip ever. all of it, top to bottom. But I spent a lot of time, especially in London, where I was talking to people that I didn't know. Okay, and I don't want to get specific here, but anyway. So, how is the media? How is the government talking to the country about aliens and UFOs and contacting UAPs? And over at Caz, I'm telling you, I asked 100 people this question. They all said the same thing. We're not getting nothing. We get our information from you guys.
That's right.
Our government is not open on this subject like yours is right now. And I thought to myself, I thought that we were on the same page, the United Kingdom and Great Britain and the United States, where we dealt with things the same way. And I was very surprised to get those answers out of everybody that I spoke to over there, that your government is not dealing with this like ours is. Why do you think that's the case?
It's very closed shop, isn't it? We're trying to change that, Gary and I. We do have a petition out at the moment in line with what Congress are trying to do, to disclose what they know about UAPs and non-human intelligences. We've also written to King Charles himself to order the UK government to start a process of disclosure in this country, because I believe we've got a right to know. Well, in fact, I was told we don't have a right to know, but we deserve to know, and we should know, because these things are real.
What do you think? And I'm not going to bring up Nick Pope, but I just did.
No, please don't.
Do you think that I can say? I mean, we have proof that the United States is holding back as citizens of this country. I know what I know. I know what I've seen, and I'll leave that there. What do you think the UK government is holding on to? You've got 2 or 3 or 4 of the craziest, most amazing cases in the history of ufology, and certainly with Pentyrch. And you've also got Rendlesham, where you have got the United States involved. You have the Britain's military involved. It's also a modern case, but you have a paper trail and you have witnesses. And these are huge cases that the UK government and the military of defense has information on that they're not going public with.
Right. I think we're hand in hand with the United States when it comes to the retrieval of these craft. I believe that what was taken at Smilow Woods and the other debris where they brought the barrels down was taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. A whistleblower did come forward to politicite, and I took it with a pinch of salt when I read their statement, until they mentioned that it was brought off the back of one of these huge aircraft on white back flatbed trucks. Now, those trucks were witnessed at St. Athan on the 26th of February 2016, and we never made that information public because we didn't see the relevance of it. It wasn't part of the case, until that witness said that they brought that craft off the back of one of these huge, whether it be one of the C-130s or C-17s, I'm not sure, on white back flatbed trucks. And then my ears lifted up, because that rings true. And of course, the Royal plane flew there from RAF St. Athan on that day. In fact, David Cameron, the Prime Minister, was here. Prince William was here. And then our King Charles was here, and all at RAF St. Athan by 7:30 on the 26th of February 2016.
Do you think that debris and the crash retrieval stayed in the UK, or do you think they brought it over to the United States?
They took it to the States.
Yeah.
But not before members of our royal family and the Prime Minister had seen it. and very
Now,
possibly escorted it there.
there was also, I need you to refresh my memory on this. Gary mentioned something about, I don't get into politics on this show. I don't. Politics just, ugh. But was there some United States private flights, government flights coming in and out of that area at that time as well? And do you have confirmation of that?
I'm not sure what your question is. I know that the royal plane landed at St. Athan, and it came from RAF Northolt, and flights from Northolt to St. Athan are very, very rare. I also know that 2 members of the royal family, or 2 heirs to the throne, are not allowed to travel on the same flight, but they did that day. And David Cameron's visit to GE Aviation was never planned. There was no speech, no walk around. He went there and then he left again and went straight to RAF St. Athan.
Now, what were the dates of those? The royal flight and the Cameron flight?
26th of February 2016. And Cameron didn't fly down. Cameron came down in an entourage of black 4x4s. Williams allegedly came for the rugby match, which he could have just turned up at anyway. And the only one that I have a problem with is the night King Charles. His visit must have been planned. But as for William and Cameron, they could have gone anywhere, anytime.
You know there are no coincidences, right?
Absolutely. I know that. And the synchronicities that have gone on in this case have been crazy. Crazy.
Don't you love it, though, that it's all part of the confirmation that, well, we keep saying this was a real event. I have no issues with that. What I mean is you need these synchronicities and these coincidences to let you know that you're not nuts, right? I mean, what's the alternative here? That this was all your imagination, right? That your brain is quitting on you, right? Or all of these things really did happen all in a row. And you need that. You need that for support.
I've got some great support. I think Carrie Lee's in the chat tonight. She's one of my biggest fans. I think she's an amazing lady. Gary Jones is also in the chat. But I have a lot of people that now they've seen the evidence, because that's what I ask everybody to do, to be my judge and jury, to look at the evidence and not listen to the naysayers that don't provide any evidence. I've had to evidence everything I've said, right from the beginning, that I can prove that it wasn't a military exercise or a police counter-terrorism exercise. So why were they here? What was the cause of the explosion? It certainly wasn't a simulated munition. They didn't have any permission to use a simulated munition. It was a live round, the same as when they were shooting the barrels down. We've got witnesses, in fact, a veteran that was in the hospital that night, who was shaken in his bed by the explosion, heard lots of gunfire, and that was them shooting the barrels down. Remember I said that it was almost as if they were made of glass, but they were made of this crystalline type substance, and they were shattering on impact with roads and roundabouts and all sorts of things. And I know that the rest of them were pursued west, 50 miles outside of the alleged no time that was posted. I mean, they're not allowed to fly within 3 nautical miles of a no times boundary, but they exceeded it by over 50 miles and went through Neath and Port Talbot and Swansea and Gowerton and all the way out to sea. So God forbid what they did to them out there. And we have a witness in Bettis and Bridgend that saw a cluster of lights being pursued by military jets and helicopters. And I spoke to this witness and said, I know those lights weren't white. So what colour were they? And he told me green. And I knew then that he'd seen them. And he made that comment on the morning of the 26th of February 2016. We've got a lot of witnesses. I just had a new witness come forward now, who just made a speech in my latest presentation, who saw the pyramid from underneath. It flew over the top of him, you know. We've got a witness in Colwyn Bay in North Wales that saw the pyramid fly across the causeway and arcing up into space. So it made it, at least that got away, you know, and that was at 4:40 in the morning. And I said, well, what the hell were you doing up at 4:40 in the morning? And he said, well, we just coming out of the hospital. We had to rush our 6-month-old baby boy into hospital, and they'd just been given the clearance to come home. So it was this gentleman and his wife that saw this thing. And it was exactly the same description as what I saw.
I wanted to ask you, Caz, in the short time that we have left, I want to go back to the moment that the pyramid lit up.
Sure.
You've described a flash. Did the flash happen from independent of the pyramid? Was the pyramid lit up, or did the pyramid? I know that the lights came on from the outside.
You've confused me. What flash?
You said that there were 3 flashes at the very beginning.
That was from the bright green object when the aircraft was flying towards where the pyramid was last seen. The bright green object, the first object that came out of the pyramid, had skipped across and in front of those aircraft and then flashed 3 really bright strobes at those aircraft in an attempt to get those aircraft to follow it. And that's exactly what happened. Like, it was like chasing a ball almost, you know, chasing. And it skipped and bobbed and the 4 aircraft went after it. So does that...
I was just wondering, did those flashes illuminate for an instant the pyramid, or was it too far away?
No, it was directed at the aircraft.
Gotcha. Okay. So next question. When you saw the surface, I'm going to hold this up. When you saw the surface, it kind of looks like it too, huh? A little bit, right? Okay. Anyway, so when you saw the surface of the pyramid, was it because of the lights that lit up on the pyramid, and that's why you were able to see the surface of it?
Yeah. Around as it tipped. And so you got the bottom corner down here and that edge. You got that edge with the lights that are all on that edge as it neared the ground. And that whole corner, both sideways and on the slope, if you like, lit up really brightly. And so you could see around the brightest lights that had turned from red to bright white orange color, like fire colored. You could see the texture of the craft, that it was a solid craft and not a string of lights. And anyone out there, who I call my not so learned friends, that are trying to say what I saw were flares, there is a FOIA that went into the Ministry of Defence. They're not allowed to use red flares on private land at all for any training purpose. No flares were used. And we've got that in black and white from them. So I know the difference between a string of lights and a pyramid, you know, because this thing was enormous. It was like a giant building leaning in from somewhere else.
I have personally been at the base of the Great Pyramid and the Bent Pyramid and the Step Pyramid and the Red Pyramid. I've been in front of them, and the size, when you stand in front of the Great Pyramid or the Bent Pyramid, they're about the same size. You cannot, when you are in front of it, you can't see the whole thing. It's that big. It's that wide, and it's only 450 feet. It's 450 feet tall. But when you're looking at it, you can't see the top of it. You have to look up. But when you're looking up, you can't see the bottom. It's that big, and that is about half of the size of what you witnessed there in Pentyrch. So I need everybody to understand. I know how big. I've tried to take pictures. You can't take a picture of the Great Pyramid. You can't do it. It won't fit. You have to back up a mile and a half mile, and then you might be able to. You can't. You just can't do it. It's that
only
big.
an estimation as to the size. I wasn't out there with a measuring tape, from the EMF trail that was left and from the gate and me being able, where I first saw the top of the pyramid, using that angle and distance, with the EMF trail that was left behind, it's an estimation as to the size and volume of that thing. But we estimate 993 feet, I think it was.
That is crazy big.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just crazy big.
Well, to stand in a multi-story car park and count off 15 or 20 vehicles, how big would it have to be able to jettison 15 or 20 vehicles?
Yeah, like I said, I have the bent pyramid is a really good example. The Great Pyramid, you've got other stuff that's there, and you've got, but the bent pyramid sits all by itself in the middle of the desert. And when you walk up on that, and you park a half mile away, and it takes you forever. Anyway, the point is, as you get closer and closer and closer, it's 450 feet, right? And you're looking at and you suddenly understand the size of this. So to picture in my mind's eye something twice as big and twice as tall, it boggles the mind. But it answers all of the questions with your statements. To see the top, you're not seeing the bottom. If you're looking at the bottom, you can't. It's out of your field of view.
Right.
So if you're looking at the corner, as you have described it, right, pivoting, right, on that corner, if you're looking at that, and I would have, you don't know what's going on up there.
I couldn't see
the top
with my peripheral vision at all.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
I'm fixated on it touching the ground. I don't know to this day why. But yeah, David was looking at the top.
Yeah.
And he said he saw 15 or 20 of those things come out. So
now, so what, Caz? Thank you for putting up with your cold and everything else, and I know it's very early in the morning out there. Thank you. I look forward to our next conversation. But let me ask you this before I let you go: what are you going to do when the government does make the announcement? Not only about Pentyrch, but ET contact in general. Do you jump up and down and say, I told you so? Or do you just keep moving forward with your life? What are you going to do? You're going to go to Disney World?
Yeah. I don't think, any of our lives will ever be the same again. Mine certainly isn't. And for better or worse, we should be told. I don't think it'll affect us in our daily lives, but it's certainly going to affect us most profoundly. It turned my world upside down. I'm certainly not going to celebrate if we ever do get disclosure. But in my opinion, those things that night were not hostile. And what our military did was not only totally illegal, but unjust and cruel and merciless. Because there was no hand of friendship, no attempt to communicate. They just pursued and shot down. They're going to show us the same mercy. That's why it's so important for me, because the military have had carte blanche to do what they like for nearly 100 years now. And what does that mean for us, for you and your family, for me and mine? For our planet. They shouldn't be allowed to make decisions for all of us when it affects us globally. They'll say they don't need our permission, but I think they do, because we're not even supposed to know they exist.
Right.
And what happens if they shoot the wrong one down?
Yes, you got that right. Well, you know what, though? There will be a Christmas dinner with your family, hopefully sooner than later. You're gonna show up, and your family, and everything's going down, and your family. Well, I guess you're not the crazy UFO lady anymore, right? And that date's gonna happen. And you need that. And all of the other experiencers out there and the witnesses and the people that have put up with this for years, they need to be able to stand upright, and that day's coming very soon. So, Caz, thank you so much. All my best to your family. Tell Gary I said yo, okay?
I will.
And I look forward to our next conversation. And you and I got to hang out on my next trip to the UK.
Absolutely. Give me a call.
Thank you, Caz. Behave and be well.
And you.
Caz Clarke. Now, I've got links for Caz below, and you can go and get her book too as well. Highly recommend it. That was a perfect show. Thank you so much, Caz. Thank you for everything that you are out there doing, and never give up. Never give up. I want to remind everybody that there is a press conference tomorrow at the Mondrian Hotel in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. And that's going down at 10 a.m. about the Peruvian mummies and the latest reveal there. That's going down at 10 a.m. I've got links up for everybody to go and watch the press conference live. All right. And then tomorrow night on the show, Laird Scranton is here. We're going to be talking about his new book, and it is called The Waters of Life. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Genocide. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. SpaceBoyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Laird Scranton, all I got is go back Lee Tappy.